Yo, so Tag, I entered a remix competition for Benn here in Longfield and Polyend, and I decided to do a teardown of how my track was made, and Jesse kind of beat me to the punch. So thanks Jesse for starting the trend. Um, if you hear any loud noises, I have my window open because it's going to be a gorgeous day in Chicago. So let's start it off. So I kind of have my track split into a few different sections here. Um, kind of have an intro beatless section here. I have a main beat and the introduction of the melody here. I have like more big melody here. I have a blend out here, and then I have a granular glitchy part here, and then an outro. So I'm gonna start at the beginning. Um, so this right here, you can see it's just the generative four voice thing that Ben made. I believe I reversed it and also time stretched it like crazy and put quite a bit of reverb onto it. And yeah, this Reactor 6 right here is a plugin called VHS. It's free in the user library, I think. But yeah, it's just like a VHS emulation. But it sounds very Boards of Canada-ish, with kind of that pitch modulation, so I kind of wanted to keep it. So it's just kind of like a mood setter. I have some chords. And those are made. Those are made with with a piano roll, um, or it is Serum, and I used one of the wave tables, I believe. If I didn't use a wave table, I got in the habit of doing something where a lot of the wave tables Ben specifically gave didn't seem super useful to me. So what I actually did was I did with both Serum and Faceplant, you can drag samples of like say Sarah's guitar riff or Ben's piano, and you can drag them drop in here. So they do like a fast Fourier transform, and they turn into their own wavetable. So I would do that. The patch itself is nothing crazy. It's some unison, some detune, and a little envelope. And that's pretty much it for that. For the chain on it, EQ, reverb, a little bit of Haas effect. I used the Fruity Stereo Enhancer. No, I didn't do that for this one. I just increased the stereo separation a bit. Usually I just use this phase offset, just like Haas kind of effect. And then Vintage Verb, which is pretty popular. I usually use a lot of Vintage Verb or Shimmer, but I've been getting glitchy results, like plugins not loading lately. So for the generative four voice thing, you can see in this envelope right here, I actually kind of modulate the volume of it to give it some movement. The big one is this Piano Boy. And actually when I was opening this, got hit with an issue for two of my plugins where apparently the trial expired. So this was More Feedback Machine by Yuhei. I use it for a lot of like trippy delays and soundscaping, and Kaleidoscope straight up didn't load. But Kaleidoscope I can show some other time. That's where the piano doesn't sound exactly like it did. Kaleidoscope is like a spectral filter, melodic and harmonic tool. Essentially, you can put a sound into it, and it goes through with just like a ton of bandpass filters and makes it into like some kind of like background pad or background keys or like a little arpeggio, things like that. I find it useful. Some of the stuff that you can do with it is really good at giving some tone to otherwise atonal things. So that's that. Then you have this guy. So for that, the chain is Volcano 2. which I use for kind of the formanty characteristics of it. You can put up to 4 different filters, either in serial or parallel or some algorithm of them. And I believe this is a tweaked preset that I used. I think I just like changed where the cutoff filter was for it. Decapitator, give it a little bit of saturation, and then my delay thing, which apparently still works, by the way, because I could hear that in the actual pad or patch. The actual sound itself is Serum again. Again, more of those like bring in the wave shape and stuff like that. I forgot what I triggered this with. Telephone, maybe. Yeah. So I changed the wavetable position and the sync of this wavetable with just this kind of drawn waveform here, just to give it some movement. And I also changed the cutoff filter. I have a German LP with a lot of resonance. I know Ben in the video said it was like FM. I wish it was. It just sounds FM-y. I have the bend on full on this guy, unison of 3, detune, and I modulate the decay as well to help change the spacing of the notes and give it a little more interesting movement. This bass right here. That's just, I think, Serum again, and same idea, you just take the wave shapes from the sample and use those. So let's get into the drums. This boy right here. So I wanted to make something that was kind of breakbeaty, but not quite, didn't sound like it was in 4/4. And somebody on the streams asked like what time signature it was in. It's totally 4/4, but you can see like I'm changing where the snare is supposed to hit, so it probably gives it like a pseudo, I don't know, weird vibe. But basically what I did was I took the 3 different kicks, I think the kicks from Sarah's pack or something like that, and I layered them. And I basically put them all into this kick bus after some EQ with some compression and maximizer. And then I recorded it out as audio and put it here. So these all aren't actually playing. The snares, I have, see this guy? Oh, right. There you go. I have this guy here, this snare. And then I took Benn's Sega hi-hat sample and I stretched it, and I used the mono, so it sounds like, and if you can't hear, that has like a frequency shifter on it, the Haas filter, decapitator. I just loaded some free plugin called Frequency Shifter, which adds some modulation to it. I didn't even change it, honestly. Decapitator, do a little bit of saturation to it. And then I put my favorite compressor, Compassion, onto it to give it a little snap, which you can hear right in the attack of it. But then I just changed it inside FL's like sampler thing to hold as long as I want it to, basically. So I can either make it short or I can make it long. But as soon as I let go, it cuts off. And that way I could have it hit exactly where snare is, and right when another kick comes in, it cuts off right away to help not have elements overlap, but still give it kind of that interesting groove to it. The Serum thing I ended up not using because I found out I was going to use it for like a transient emphasizer for the kick, and I just took it out because I realized I wasn't allowed to do that. So, so about that point, we have these pads come in. And it's the same way that I made these pads. You know, it's just a paddy sound. I took in a wavetable and found something that worked. Then there's this guy. phase plant. I brought in one of the wavetables. I put a filter, some distortion on it. The envelope right here pretty much only changes the filter cutoff. I put a Haas stereo effect to increase the width. A 3-band EQ so I could take out the low, boost the mids a little bit. I put in like a triplet delay. And then on my actual mixer, I just put in OTT. So OTT is that like little click that you hear at the beginning of the patch if you listen. Hear how the delay is like super clicky? That's what it is. I just do that sometimes because it makes me think about there's a Trent Moyer track that's like kind of an ambient track, but if you listen to the lead on that track, like the only synth, it has like kind of that character. It's kind of interesting, and I kind of like it. Going into the drums, so these guys up here. So that is, let's see here. What pattern is that? So, okay, so it's a slice X. So here's the original pattern. And the way that I made it is with Reactor. I believe it's this one. And I used an ensemble called Vortecker. So I do this sometimes to give a little bit of like glitchy steppiness, and I just used one of Benn's loops as the source. And when you play it, there's 8 scenes, and each scene can have a certain amount of like speed, pitch, grain length, grain spacing, hold, decay, sustain, attack, reverse, not reversed, can start from a different point in the loop, whatever. But then you use the step sequencer at the top here, and you can make it whichever way that you want. So I did that, recorded it, and then put that into Slice X because I wanted something that had some of those like glitchy timbres, but I wanted it to be more characteristic. Because if you take it straight out of the Vortecker, it sometimes doesn't line up well with beats and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted the character, but keep it kind of quantized, I guess, if you will. This one down here. I think that was, what was that? I think that was Reactor 2. And I think that was the same idea. Yeah, I just used the pure data wave that Ben gave. Same idea though. Just took that out, quantized it kind of. For this part, so that was just an ARP that I wrote that fit the chord progression. But that synth itself is phase plant, and I am doing one of the wavetables Ben gave. I distorted it, then filtered it, and distorted it again. And then I have this random LFO, and this random LFO has full jitter, but low smooth and low chaos. That means every time you hit a new note, it's kind of like a sample and hold. It'll pick a new value. I have that going to the frame for the waveform. The ring modulation that I have going on in this ring modulator here changes the drive of my phase distortion. It also changes the mix of my ring mod. So that changes all the different values in different ways. So yeah, I basically have all these lanes, and I have them set so it goes through lane 1, then lane 2, then lane 3. So I have phase distortion, a foldback distortion, a ring modulator, then a comb filter, then a ladder filter, and that ladder filter's cutoff is changed by this envelope in the bottom left, along with the resonance, then some delay and reverb. And I don't think, did I put anything else on it? No, I didn't. So I kept it straight out. I didn't really touch it except for levels. This bass down here is pretty much the same thing as it was before. I just changed the pattern. I kind of wish that I took care of a little more of that bass rumble, of that overlap. I kind of wish I had changed up the percussion up here too a little bit more. I did change up the actual kick snare pattern quite a few times. You say I have pattern 1 over here, and then that changes to pattern 2. and then I have pattern 3. And basically what that is pattern 1 being like, and then pattern 2 being like, just adding kind of like triplet hit, just to kind of help drive it a little bit forward. Then pattern 3. And I just changed the spacing of some stuff to make it seem on filter again. Let's see. Yeah, right, the melody. This boy. But at the beginning, it's very... And I believe this was also made the same way that I made pretty much all my other synths. Thank you, pattern 13. So this one I made in Serum. Same thing, wavetables. I have this oscillator B that's used for the build. I have increased unison on it a lot at detune, and basically as you change this build, you what is this even going to? So this is going to the level of that, the detune of the higher oscillator, and it increases the cutoff of the filter that I have it on. I have some portamento on there, which you could hear. Basically, I was trying to emulate. There's a patch that I really like on Albino 3 that I use sometimes for these like smooth, slippery leads. So delay and reverb is pretty much it for that guy. Yeah, I didn't even do anything on the mixer at all inboard effects. So then you have this build in the actual track. And so for that stuff, the lead is actually different. I used a different patch, and I actually changed the melody too. So if you listen to the this part of the melody, and then for this one, I had it, instead of kind of go up earlier, I have it slowly go up. So it's... Oh, oops, sorry. You can hear there's like some vibrato that creeps in the longer a note holds on. And I added like a little pitch bend at the end because it reminds me of an old Infected Mushroom track that I really, really like. I changed the keys too. These keys are like... They sound almost like more harpsichordy, or like the only like thing that I kind of thought about when I was writing it is it reminds me of a Daft Punk track, like there's one off of Ram with keys, and I forgot the exact name of it. It's that one with Julian Casablancas, but it kind of reminds me of those keys. The way that I made that was pretty much the same way that I made all my other ones. Serum, still using those other wavetables, but it's really simple. I didn't really have anything except for filter modulation. It's only 2 for that. Maybe there's something more in the mixer. Yeah, so on the mixer I use Decapitator, again, to saturate it. Based OTT. Arts Acoustic Reverb, which is my favorite reverb. I usually pick, there's a few presets that I modulate, or like not modulate, tweak to make it what I want. So they're always in input defined. And then for piano, there's electric piano. I either use Dream Roads or DX7 Ballad. Or for synth, under pad, they have long and deep. And usually what I do is I take that as my starting point and then play with the damping, the EQ, the pre-delay, decay, and definitely the level. I don't really touch the room because most of the presets on this sound very metallic and not real. But something about these settings for it make it sound very good. So then, yeah, after that, it was just EQ. Take the low end off, boost the mids a little bit. Yeah, so then there's this other pad. Is this the same? Oh right, I forgot about this guy. So I added this kind of like arpeggiator to it. I just used FL has a built-in like randomized arpeggiator, but this is kind of just up the serum, exactly what you would think. Really close envelope on the filter cutoff. 6 unison for this wave. I found in one of the samples. The only thing with like bringing in a sample like this is sometimes they don't all blend smoothly, so they're like it's really hard to like change them. I know I could do it, but I didn't know if that was considered generating incompatible material with the competition rules. So I didn't want to like blend them and possibly introduce a waveform that I wasn't allowed to have. Okay, so there's that, and then at this point I kind of back everything off, and then I just change all my automation, make it go lower, fade stuff out. And I have the generative voice normal reversed and thrown in. And this part. Okay, so this part, I'll address the elephant in the room, which is all this stuff up here. So that's all the actual like glitchy noises and stuff. Like if I were to play just a single track, I don't want to solo it because then I have to unsolo. Basically, what I did for all of these was I took drum loops that I had, and I took like synth parts, and I would put them into Fruity Granulator. So if I pull up, I think it's my group glitch grains 1. Okay, so I only have the I have the granulizer. But basically, I modulated the grain spacing and the wave spacing, and I have like a MIDI twister here, and I would just record it into Edison and modulate those until I found nice timbres. Then I'd like change those a little bit to make them either more exponential or grittier. I would change with the pitch of them, and I would do this process. Like I'd record it and be like, cool, I have a new stem. And then I'd throw that into the granulator again and then re-record it on top of that. And I would do that, I see 4 times, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And each time I would do it, if there was things I liked or didn't like, I would like change it. So I would like change the pitch, or I would change like the time stretching of it if I thought that that sounded better. And then I'd feed it back into the granulator, do it again. And I did this with 2 different pieces of material. So you can see that I have this group that track 3, this guy, is made out of these 4 under it, and track 8 is made out of those 4 under that. So that's how I did that. And basically, yeah, once I had all that material, I just cut it up. And when I do this process, recently, I don't want to keep doing this, right? But recently, what I do is every time there's a kick or a snare, I try to change the material, and I try to, like, I guess, like, change it, but then, like, also if I have, like, a quarter note, maybe I'll take that quarter note and split it into 2/8. Or if I have, like, 3 beats, or beats, maybe, like, what, a dotted quarter, then I would take and do it, like, maybe triple it or something like that. So you can see, like, some of these I would have, like, little micro cuts here and stuff like that. For all those glitches, glitch 1 bus, I have frequency shifter, which I never used. I was going to, and I realized it muddies it up too much, and I couldn't get like really clear undertones and texture. OTT, which I changed it, so I boosted the mids a little bit, and I think I changed like some of these windows here. Glitch 2, I definitely used a pitch shifter. I brought it down by like 3 semitones, then OTT, and then parametric EQ because it was a little too harsh in the high end and not enough low. Had like nice sounds to it, but yeah. So this guy, pattern 18, is a neuro-ish bass that I layered on top of some of them. And I tried to make it so it fit cohesively into the mix. And the way that I did that was with phase plant, And I used those wavetable things that I talked about, and I did a lot. Let me go through this here. So one of them I just used as a sub, which was this one. I didn't really touch. Oh, I did touch the frame. I think I touched it a little bit because the wave form goes from like a strict sine wave to something with like a few more harmonics over it, and I wanted a little bit of that roughness while still maintaining a low end. This guy is just my squelchy part. You can see that looks pretty crazy up there. So I saturated it. I did a notch filter, and I would automate the cutoff through that. And you can see through all of these, I have like how many random LFOs? I have 6 random LFOs that are all changing different things, so I never do the same sound twice. And let's see. Yeah, so the sub I only send to lane 1 and then send straight to lane 3. For this noise, I had to go to lane 2 and then go to lane 3. So the sub is only getting a little bit of overdrive. This guy is getting phase distortion, a phaser, a formant filter, a carve EQ, and then another notch filter that I'm modulating through one of these random guys. Then they both go to this limiter here, which is kind of like my OTT, but I just kind of wanted to put the sounds together and make it sound good. However, I apparently still put an OTT on it. I boosted the highs, cut the mids, a little bit of the lows I touched up a little bit as well. And then some more EQ. And none of this stuff is scientific, dude. It's just you do what you feel is going to make the sound good, and then when you're mixing it later, then you go back to it. So a lot of this is just kind of on the fly. I think this sounds good. I think this sounds good. I throw it in. All right, this guy. Which comes in like. So that is pretty much the same thing as last time. Pretty much all my synth sounds I kind of handled the same way. Do I not have a... No? Okay, so this is it. So originally when I made this, I was going to make it like a like an acid kind of lead. I wanted something like a little, I don't know, like 303-ish in there. So you see a lot of stuff like I had this like pomp bit like modulator here. So when I like play with that, but I decided not to go too heavy on that because it ended up having problems mixing in, and it ended up having problems just being cohesive in terms of like the mood and the tone of the track. So wavetable, filter, distort, out, and I have another wavetable that came, and I think this is like the sub one. They all go to lane 1. Lane 1 has phase distortion, a disperser. I had a saturator on it. It was too much distortion. Then just a notch filter, and then an ensemble. And for a lot of the randomness on this one, I did kind of the same thing I did previously, where I put the jitter all the way up with the smooth and chaos down. So every time it's like a sample and hold on select parameters. So like this guy got some modulation, this one got some. Usually what I do is for every individual thing, I make like a new one, and then I go back and for 2 that are like unrelated, like say the frame and then the disperser pinch, I would link those, or the drive for one of the filters versus the spread of a chorus or something. So things that are like kind of unrelated, just because I think it's a little more interesting. Then I finally, at that point, I have. So this was, I think, just like I tried to find whatever wiry thin guy I could. In retrospect, I really wish I just made this audio and cut it out so that's really clean right here. Hear the reverb tail. So with these piano chords, I handled that pretty easily. Had some. Oh right, yeah, this is a cool trick. Using Pro Q, you can do left-right EQ. And so in order to create a stereo effect on what is kind of a very narrow sample, I boosted the low end to the left and cut the low end on the right, then boosted the high end on the right, and cut the low end on the left. And so the idea is like you have a piano sitting in front of you, and you can hear the keys from the left louder than the keys from the right. So it kind of creates a little more dynamic, especially because the way Ben wrote this piano part, it's kind of like low, high, 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 low, low. So it's, I kind of wanted that little bit of like width. And you can hear that in the stereo field just a little bit. And then I just increased the stereo spread just to increase that effect a little bit. I have my EQ, I cut the low a lot, I boosted up there. I ended up using Floodverb, which is, what's the name of the library? What's the name of that? Oscomac. It's a free reverb, but I wanted to use Shimmer, but I was having those like glitches where like the plugin wouldn't load because I had too many instances of like other reverbs or something. Something with all the plugins have been giving me trouble lately. And then I put a compassion on it, just some minor compression, and then another reverb. But then what I did was, at the very end of it, like in this part here, there's a lot of reverb going on the piano. And for this part where I have the tape stoppy grind effect before it comes back, I actually turn all that reverb off. I think. Yeah, right here. So what I have is I have another glitch sound that this is generative voice again. So then I have that do its like slide in thing, and then I also have another instance of a fruity granulizer there, and I have some settings that I found and I like really tweaked to make it like that. That's weird. I don't remember that reverb coming through. Is this like an old version that maybe I didn't save? Oh, maybe I didn't. Oh, because of Kaleidoscope, dude. Right, that's why that's coming through now. So one of my plugins didn't learn, that's why it's not coming through. But anyway, so the very end of this. So a little bit. Ben did leave some really good space in the way that he did this piano part to have like another melody come through, and I kind of found myself humming this little fill when I was doing the outro, and I was like, oh, this would actually be a really nice thing to add in there and give it like a little more meat character to it, not just like I'm throwing the same sample in there again and again and again. So I think this is actually the same lead that I had. Yeah, it's the same Serum preset with that I used previously. Same stuff. Because it was soft and delicate, and then having like a recurring sound is something you would pick up on. And then the very end of it on the master, I put on the Piano Core 2, I used this Arts Acoustic Reverb. That's what I used it for. Okay. So originally that Arts Acoustic Reverb I didn't use. I just used that Floodverb. But this Arts Acoustic Reverb here is actually meant to fade out the end of this because I couldn't end the piano in a way that made sense. Like it would just be like too abrupt without it. So I actually like smudged out the end of it, and then I decided to give myself some space and then have like ending on like the relative major. So I put everything in like kind of a C minor, and I ended up having it. So I ended up ending it in like a E flat major, just because I thought that was like a fun way of having all this build up, and then it kind of deceptive cadences into what you were trying to do. Anyway, that's pretty much the gist of it. I need to. Oh, right. I completely forgot about that. One other thing that I did, I have a deep blue stretch down here, and I just used that to create this fill right here. just that stutter kind of thing. I just turned it on. It has like it has a parameter called trigger. Once it goes past 50%, it turns on. It goes below 50%, it turns off. I use that sometimes if I'm doing like a lot of manual plug-in based glitching before I render it out to audio. And then screw with it some more. Okay, so that's pretty much the entire gist of it. I mastered it with another program, or not program, project. But since that is pretty much everything, I need to go and reformat my entire computer now, because I figured out that I'm having a lot of audio driver issues. That ruins everything. Wait a minute. Oh, did I? Yeah, dude, I totally did. Okay, that was the issue. I had the reverbs set off here, so it's like remember that reverb tail from earlier? No, it's still there. It's this piano board thing, just because Kaleidoscope's not doing its job, which really sucks. Great. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. I'll link the full, complete, mastered, whatever track as well. It's on my SoundCloud, so feel free to ask any questions. And I will see you guys some other time. Thanks for tuning in.